Hello, good evening, and welcome to a very special edition of the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club Masterpiece Edition. I'm Brian Hibbs. I'm your host. I'm the owner of Comics Experience. We love comics at Comics Experience. We love great comics. We love talking about comics. And so we have these three clubs, if you include the Kids Club, which you should, where we pick great books and we bring the authors in and we talk to them, and it's great. And we have a really special show tonight. I perhaps foolishly booked three people each of whom I could probably talk to solo for 2 hours at a time. And we're going to try and get all of them in here and see where this goes. This should be a really good conversation about comics, about Vertigo Comics in particular, and about our pick this month, which you can see from behind me, but I'm going to hold it up, which is SANDMAN, Preludes and Nocturnes. We are very, very lucky here to have Neil Gaiman, Paul Levitz, and Karen Berger. Welcome to you, my lovely panel, and my good friends.
Hello, hello. It's great to
Pleasure
be
to
here.
be here.
It is so good to be here.
And Neil, like that early pitching, I mean, did it feel like it was actually plausible that you'd be able to sell a script to DC at that point in your career, or was it kind of hope and prayer?
I had a secret weapon, which was Dave McKean. And I knew how good Dave was. And Dave and I had met on a comic that wasn't happening, but we'd liked each other, and I'd gone, oh my God, you're brilliant. He'd started working on Violent Cases, which meant that when Karen and Dick and Jeanette came over on their search for British talent, and I think the end of '86, I got to turn up with Dave, and Dave got to show them his pages from Violent Cases. And Dave was convinced that this was going to be a complete bust because he'd already gone over on his own dime to New York, kind of gone to DC and Marvel, and they'd just given him a weird look, and he'd gone away again. But we were in there. I pitched a Phantom Stranger story. And to Karen, who said, that's funny, Grant Morrison was in here this morning and he pitched a Phantom Stranger story too. And we said no to him too, because somebody else is doing it. So out of that, that little talent run that morning, they got Animal Man and Black Orchid.
Yeah.
And then Karen phoned me when I was writing the last episode of Black Orchid. I was writing the last issue, and she said, look, we're a bit worried because it's a character that nobody's ever heard of, done by two guys nobody's ever heard of, and it's a female character at that, and they don't really sell. So we thought that we'd give Dave this Arkham Asylum comic to do, and we'd let you do something too, and that way you'll get names. You'll at least be known when we release Black Orchid. And of course, as it happened, Black Orchid came out before Arkham, and Black Orchid came out, a month before SANDMAN. But that was where the SANDMAN conversation came from with Karen, where I just said, I remember listing characters I liked to her, and she said no to each one of them because somebody else was doing the Forever People or the Demon or whatever. All of the things I pitched. And at the end, when I ran out of air, she said, what about that SANDMAN thing you were telling me and Jeanette about when we had dinner? You said you wanted to do something with the Jack Kirby SANDMAN. And I said, oh yeah, I do. And she said, great, so do that, but just don't make it the Kirby SANDMAN, make it your own. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that was how hard pitching SANDMAN was.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
The last question is there's a lot of people who watch this series who are aspiring creators. They want to create. If you had a piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring creator, whether it's physical, whether it's philosophical, just one sentence, you know. What do we
Follow
have?
your dreams, and read your contracts.
And read your. I like that. Paul?
Both of them.
Don't give up. Years ago, we had a consulting company come in and analyze how we recruited new talent. And they came up with no useful advice, but they came up with a magnificent metaphor that I've been talking about ever since, which is they said, basically what you do is you ask people to hit their head against a brick wall until the brick wall breaks. At that point, having determined that they're sincere, you check and see if they have any talent. So if you want to be a creative person, you have to be willing to hit your head against the brick wall until the brick wall breaks. And I think that's true for comics, that's true for prose, that's true for acting, pretty much every creative medium. Have a hard head and don't mind the headaches. It's a wonderful thing if you can get through.
Love it. Love it. Karen?
Be true to yourself. Respect others as you would have them respect you. And shoot for the moon.
Yeah. Love it.
I love looking back on it, Karen. It amazes me how many artists we gave their first gig to on Sandman, and how many of them went on to become stellar, and how many of them we've never heard of again. And both of those things happened, and I love that we did both of those things. We would always take a chance on people. We would always, and sometimes if we felt they weren't ready, we'd then keep an eye on them until the point where, like Mike Allred.
I knew you to say
remember
that. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He just wasn't quite ready for the big time, but he was amazing. But we kept an eye on him, and
I still remember
as soon as he was ready, it was like, come draw Sandman finally. Do prez.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.